How close do you think we are at this point now to a potential trade war, in your view?
Conflict is not going to resolve a lot of those issues, so finding ways to keep pressure on but to constructively engage is important. I worry that when it is just left to come up to leaders without that, the risk of conflict is higher. And then when you do things like the tariff decision, it creates a lot of risk.
So the tariff decision is not the right approach in your view?
I don't think the steel tariffs are going to have a direct impact that's that big on China's economy, just because they don't export that much steel to the United States. We have to see where the exemptions end up, what the net effect of the tariffs are. If China ends up being measured in its response, that would be a good thing. I regret that there's a question of whether or not the U.S. action is based in sound foundation. This tariff decision does not seem to me to be particularly well targeted.
Do you think these reports of $60 billion of annual tariffs on a whole range of products being imported from China, could that potentially be the trigger that pushes China to retaliate? How would you expect China to react to that?
Look, what I would tell China is to not make their own actions the cause of the conflict coming to the point that you're describing. China has done many things that they rightfully are being pressured on. This excess capacity is distorting global steel and aluminum markets. It's a message they need to hear from the U.S., they need to hear it from Europe, they need to hear it from the other producing nations. What the U.S. shouldn't be is the outlier. The U.S. should be driving the world to a discussion where it leads to better outcomes.
How do you craft tariffs, should you want to target China, given the complexity of the supply chains now?
Well, look, I think that targeting actions that are violating international law, international agreement, are entirely legitimate. If there's dumping going on, having countervailing measures is a legitimate response. Putting a global tariff on steel and aluminum is not a particularly targeted approach. We're seeing the exemptions now start to build up. I mean, the idea that there was a national security reason for the U.S. to put a tariff on Canadian steel didn't make sense. I think our European allies are asking the same thing. This is a bigger question than just U.S.-China. This is a question about the U.S. place in the world. Right now, I think we have to worry about the world saying, hold on, the United States may not be doing the right thing. I mean, we have, for the last 70 years, had an alliance system with Europe and with Asia where our allies around the world could rely on us being the protectors of the rule of law. I worry that policies that weaken our leadership in the world have much bigger consequences than even what is the retaliation and the tit for tat.